What's going on, everyone? Preston Stewart and Sayer Payne with War Stories, joined today by Mike Dowling. Mike, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So you have done a lot in the last 20 years, and I'm sure we'll get into some of your backstory, what you've been up to, but what's keeping you busy today? What are you working on now?
Well, I'm in Los Angeles, and I work with I work in the film and entertainment industry, and I've been very fortunate to work on some great productions, either producing them or working as a military advisor. You know, there's lots of films and TV, military movies and whatnot around the military. And there's a whole new generation of veterans out here in Hollywood trying to make a name for themselves and be successful. And I'm one of them. And it's a grind, but I'm really enjoying it. Over the last year, I got to work, you know, it's funny. Well, I shouldn't say funny, but it's more unfortunate. But Will Smith, you know, he slapped Chris Rock, right? And that's kind of what's been tied to him since. But before that, I got to work with him. I got to work with him for quite a while. He did a really beautiful film. Hopefully that comes out. And I got to go down to New Orleans and work with him and Antoine Fuqua. Antoine is a very well-known director. He directed Training Day, Equalizer, and now the Terminal List that's coming out on Amazon. And I got to work with them on a military film, and it was a really, you know, it was a blessing, you know. And then before that, I got to work with Jennifer Lawrence on a film that's going to come out hopefully at the end of this year, and it's another military film. And yeah, I've just been really fortunate to work with some great people, great opportunities, and that's what I keep trying to do.
So what are you doing in that sense? Is it what comes to mind for me is like your name tapes on the wrong side, like correcting stuff like that? Is it?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's more than that, but.
Yeah. So my goal out here is to produce and create my own projects. And I've been able to produce a bunch of short films and short documentaries, and most of it is all supportive of military veteran causes, right? I never came to Los Angeles like to pull that, I guess, veteran card, so to speak, but there's a lot of opportunities for veterans out here with your background and experience, and it's valued out here. And so I have been able to leverage it to bring awareness to different causes and issues within the veteran community in the past with some of the productions I've worked on. But for these roles, the military advising roles, the way I like to work, you know, I like to try and get in as early as possible on a film, because sometimes the creative team will reach out to you when the film has already been made or when it's already being made. And they're like, oh, we forgot, we need an advisor for this one thing or whatever. And I don't like to work on in that capacity. I like to get in as early as possible, read the script, give them my notes on the dialogue, on all the situations, and give them alternative scenarios, and work with them from the very beginning to make sure it's you know, as authentic as it could be. And so you know, what do? I read the scripts, make sure it's believable from a military veteran standpoint, military standpoint. Work with, you know, all the departments, costume, wardrobe, and everybody, get all the uniforms, get all the props. Then you're there on set. Sometimes you have to train, depending on what's involved, you need to train the cast on, you know, some basic weapons handling and movements and stuff like that. And you know, it just depends on the film and what's involved. So, and I'm not the right person for every project either. You know, I'm not a Navy SEAL. I'm not gonna be an advisor on a Navy SEAL project. Just, you know, I pick and choose the ones I think I could be really value for, you know. So
That's cool. How do you, did you get into that just by being out there pursuing your own career? Because I feel like there's a million people coming out of the military that would raise their hand to do that.
There is a million people. Well, I shouldn't say a million. There's quite a few that are out here now, which is good. You know, that means that there's a lot of options for creatives out here to work hand in hand with the veteran community. There's no reason why you have a military production and not have it be authentic these days, you know? So, yeah, I came out, when I got out of the Marines, I just had this desire to do something completely different from my experience in the military. I wanted to learn something new. I wanted to be creative, and I'm from California. I wanted to stay in California. So I moved to Los Angeles and I started going to school at UCLA to learn production, to learn what it takes to make a production, whether that's short form content, documentaries, feature films, television, scripted stuff. You know, there's all kinds of production work out there. Everyone thinks just movies and TVs, and yes, obviously that's the main goal for most people. But there's also, you know, my very first job out here on the production side was working with the VA. So the Veterans Affairs I was going to school and just started networking, started meeting people out here, and I connected with someone who just happened to get a contract with the VA to make all these mental health videos. And they were traveling around the country to interview veterans who were successfully treated for mental health and encourage them to talk about it on camera, to encourage veterans to reach out and get. And so I was only supposed to do that for like a few months. It ended up being a 3-year gig, my first real.
Oh, no kidding.
Job. Yeah, it's called, the campaign is called Make the Connection. Make the Connection is a VA mental health campaign. You can go to maketheconnection.net. And my role was to help find the veterans, like the VA would give us a city, San Diego, Philadelphia, Boston, whatever. And I would be the one who would find the veterans to put them on camera, to interview them and help set that up, et cetera. And it was great. It was a great learning curve for me to learn kind of the nuts and bolts of what it takes to produce content and good content. And that campaign actually did really, really well. So well, my understanding was that it was only supposed to be like a 1 or 2 year campaign. It still goes to this day. They still do videos even to this day, like 10 years later.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first. And then once you start working in the business and start doing good work, you start getting referred to other people. And fortunately, I've been able to do good work, build good relationships, and continue to get work, you know? So that's just kind of how it works. You put yourself in a position to where opportunities can happen. And then when they do happen, you better be ready for them and then, you know, maximize those opportunities. And that's what I feel like I've done. Because every time I get a new job, it's because I worked with somebody on a previous production who happens to be working on this new one and throws my name in the hat as someone to work with on this new military thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's
someone told me where I used to work was luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
There you go.
And I always liked that sort of. I was like, oh, that always just clicked in my head immediately.
Yeah. And it all culminated for me. So I was doing all these like digital media productions, the VA, and then I ended up working with the, you know, wearethemighty.com, which is a military media outlet. And it was great working with them. It was super fun and exciting. It was a startup environment, and I got to work there for a few years. And then I worked on a Netflix show called Medal of Honor. So there's a docuseries that came out in 2018 called Medal of Honor. I got to work on it as an associate producer and military advisor. So I became friend again. I just built relationships out here. And one of my friends was this award-winning documentary producer and filmmaker, and he was spearheading this project. And when he got the green light from Netflix, he called me up and said, you know, Mike, I've been watching you and your work out here in Los Angeles in the veteran community and everything that you're doing. And there's no one that I trust more and that I know as well as you to hold me accountable, to make sure that this production is authentic and is true to these stories, these Medal of Honor stories. And I said, of course, I'm not going to pass up working with Netflix and Medal of Honor recipients, you know? So I got to work on that. It was like a 2-year production, and it was one of the biggest highlights of my career, being to work with Medal of Honor recipients, telling their stories. And we did 8 episodes, 8 different recipients. And actually, just coincidentally, Woody Williams this morning, he's the last World War II Medal of Honor recipient. He just passed away this morning. So there's no more Medal of Honor recipients from World War II. So we have a whole generation now of Medal of Honor recipients that are gone forever. And rest in peace to Woody. And there's very few of these guys that are alive. You know, there's like only 70 something Medal of Honor recipients. It's not that many at all that are alive. And so any chance you can get to connect with one, that's always a blessing. So I got to work on that for 2 years. I loved the end product. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I loved our show. It's just called Medal of Honor on Netflix. You guys should check it out if you haven't. Yeah.
What's that style called where it's kind of reenact? It's like, yeah, what do you call that style?
Yeah, it's a hybrid of scripted and documentary elements. It's not really called a specific term. It's a hybrid production of documentary and scripted. And it was also produced by Robert Zemeckis. Robert, he's a very famous director, producer. He directed all the Back to the Future movies. He did Forrest Gump. He did Flight. He's an icon here in Los Angeles.
Sure.
So you had such a great producing team behind this show, and for them to rely on me to ensure that they were representing the Medal of Honor and veteran community accurately, I took that obviously very seriously, a huge responsibility. So I really valued that opportunity, and it's great to be able to come out here and be part of something that is very meaningful to the veteran community and be part of that. So never would I have dreamed coming out here that I'd be able to work with Robert Zemeckis and James Moll and this amazing, and Netflix on such an impactful production, telling these amazing stories. But again, it's just being able to put myself in positions of opportunity and maximizing those opportunities, and also just being a good human being and working well with others, because there's people that come out here that they have every qualification and certification that the military has, but they don't know how to work with people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a balance of all these things that you kind of have to juggle. So that's kind of,
I imagine on top of all of that, being in the right place and meeting the right people, you're probably getting invited back because you're doing good work. I bet that's the wild card there. But I had a question about, you talked about all these different mediums of content. When you look at, say somebody tasked you today with creating some sort of content around your time is in Iraq. Is that correct?
I was in Iraq. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
What is your first thought of what that would look like? Is it a series? Is it a movie? Is it YouTube? There's so many places for things to go. What do you think is going to be the thing that kind of helps encompass the war on terror? I know that's really broad.
Well, that's interesting. I think it'll be veterans that are filmmakers telling these stories, right? Hollywood does a great job. The Top Gun is out, and Top Gun 2 is, big blockbuster. And you have Black Hawk Down and Saving Private Ryan. And, there's a lot of great, Hollywood has had a love affair with military because there's such great stories that come out of our space. But very few of these stories are actually told by veterans or directed by veterans or written by veterans. And, Oliver Stone, whether, from a political standpoint, I don't care, but from a creative standpoint, he's extremely talented, right? Yeah, and has made some brilliant films. And he was a voice of his generation of Vietnam veterans, portraying authentic stories in his filmmaking. And I really believe that our post 9/11 generation of veterans is going to step up and do that. Now, I know that there's been some projects here and there, but there still has not been a post 9/11 veteran that has directed, I could be mistaken, but a major feature film that has been directed by a veteran filmmaker about a post 9/11 story. And in terms of what medium, well, film is the big golden goose. A film is always, whether it's on a streaming service or in the theater or whatever, people are still going to watch movies. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to go away at all, but there's so much content like this, YouTube and TikToks, and who knows what's going to be created tomorrow, where you can get information much quicker and more in little small bits and here and there. And I don't know what's going to be the medium that drives the narrative. I think it all kind of collectively will do that. But people like you that are kind of helping add to the conversation is important. That's what I think, to keep these stories alive, to keep this community active and engaged with each other. I think that's super important. And, you know, even to myself, like sometimes I kind of drift off. I get into my little isolated moments of, or I just don't want to deal with people for a long time. But then I get a call from, you know, you guys, just people I don't even know, but I can immediately just kind of bond with and just chat with for a little while and feel good about it, you know? So I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of rambling at this point.
Oh,
but
no, I think we're in a good spot technologically, because we, the post 9/11 generation, can come home and just turn on a camera and start talking to ourselves, or hammer it out on a computer and save it for our kids or whatever. We weren't able to capture as many stories from World War II, certainly World War One. I mean, you're having to dig through people's personal letters that they may not have saved. So I feel like, you know, even if the thing, whatever it is, and I'm sure it'll be a couple, but even if it's 5, 10, 20 years down the road, we've at least got a lot of information captured now, because people are telling their deployment stories, even if they're not very interesting, you know, and they're captured.
Totally. And every veteran has a right to tell their story and should tell their story if they want to do that. You know, it's because it's very meaningful individually to every person. And, you know, there's been some great television shows about post 9/11 veteran storylines. And I know that show SEAL Team does a good job. They hire a ton of veterans in Hollywood. They have veterans that write episodes. They've even had veterans that have directed episodes. You know, so there are some productions that are really doing a good job in implementing as much veteran culture, you know, directly into the production, you know? And
well, I like what you're saying, Mike, about not enough people writing or directing, because I think that there's, like, I like Twilight Zone. I think it's pretty jacked up. Like the old ones, they're real creative and kind of dark, addresses stuff about humanity and stuff. And I'm like, man, how's this guy? He's masterful. He's telling these stories in 20-minute increments, and they're all different characters every single time. They're all little short stories. And then you look them up. Rod Serling, he was in 11th Airborne Corps. He was doing combat jumps in freaking European theater, or no, Pacific theater, sorry, in World War II. And so then, so this isn't a military thing. He's not writing this war saga or anything. He's just like, I'm sure he was a person before the war. He went as a young man, his perception of life changed, and he's applying that through these sort of creative outlets. And like the guy who wrote Star Trek, I think he was a veteran too, like just different ways of thinking. And it is an art and it is creative and all those sort of things.
You know, I'm glad that you brought that up, because just because you're a veteran and let's say you want to come and work in entertainment, that doesn't mean you have to just be put in a box and just do military content and do military movies and TV shows. You know, the whole reason why my career even got started on this path is because I randomly got asked by a production they were doing a military commercial for the VA, and they didn't have, but they were all civilians. They didn't have a real military guy or girl to tell them if the uniforms were correct. And I said, sure, I'll just help you out, because I wanted to, they were my friends, you know? And then they refer me. I never came out here expecting to like be a military advisor, but if I get asked to do it and I believe in the production, then yeah, I'll do it, because I want our community to be represented accurately, you know? And there's lots of vets out here that are aspiring to become writers and filmmakers, you know, who are just trying to be creative and not have anything to do with the veteran world. And that's totally okay, of course. And vets have a creative experience to draw from, because, you know, boot camp and your units that you're with, you're already exposed to such a wide, diverse range of characters and backgrounds that you can pull from, and your own experience of emotions in terms of how you handle your service. Like veterans, once you understand that we have so much life experience to offer the world and offer the communities when we come home, like it empowers you to kind of really pursue anything you want, but especially the creative stuff. Now, the other thing about the entertainment business is that, you think of creative jobs like filmmaking, writing, and you know, and acting, and which is great, but there's tons of non-creative jobs that are extremely important.
Oh, sure.
And there's lots of unions that are great unions in entertainment, where you get benefits and great pay, you're taken care of, and you're constantly working, and like whether you're handling electric or lights or driving production trucks. Like, this is all needed and well-paid work that veterans can transition into in this business. And it's not just in Los Angeles. Filmmaking's all over the country. They have filmmaking hubs in Atlanta, Louisiana, New York.
Oh,
like it's all over
yeah.
the country.
Well, think about like a meat eater. Someone's got to carry some crap around. And so it's a behind the scenes person. You're not even holding the camera necessarily, because someone has to hold the camera and still, go up and down mountains. But I'm sure there are behind the scenes people just carrying crap, being a fly on the wall in Alaska and Colorado. That to me, you don't even need a gun, right? You're just outdoors and like you're getting paid for something like that. And that exists.
So every time I get, I'm fortunate to work on a production, I sit with the producers and I say, listen, I'm not telling you you have to do this, but I at least want you to try. If you can hire veterans in a wide range of jobs, both creative and in these non-creative jobs, that would be great. And they say, yeah, of course, let's get veterans hired as much as we can. And I would, there's departments on productions, right? The costume, the makeup, the set dressing, all that stuff. So I sit with the department heads and I say, listen, when you hire your crews, I want to encourage you to bring on people who say they're veterans. And then I verify that they're veterans, because there's lots of stolen valor out here.
Oh, sure.
Because people are so desperate for work and jobs and entertainment.
That's good.
That they'll lie about being, oh yeah, I'm a vet, you know what I mean? And
gatekeepers are important.
So I've caught a lot of stolen valor.
I bet.
People trying to get hired, and but it always adds a lot of value to your production. The more, because if I'm working on a set and I hire several veterans to be this background squad, I could just give them a rifle. They know how to handle it. There's not much training you need to do there. And
they're going to start throwing rocks at each other right away. Yeah.
It saves time, saves money, and it makes your film look that much more authentic,
I heard that in let's CSI, where they got to do a little SWAT scene, a breach into a house, and the guys are all wearing like helmets and stuff. I heard that back in the day, those used to be actors, and you would have to get this actor to like wear this uniform and like, here's the gun and here, grab it. Now they just have on deck or on call just a bunch of vets that say stack up, put on this outfit. No one's going to see your face, stack up, and they know how to hold it, and where their finger goes in the trigger well and all that. And they just stack up and do it. And then that's sort of the scene, and it saves Hollywood time. And then those guys are getting they're still doing it. You know what I mean? Because they know how.
Most of the military advisors that are out here have a Rolodex of veterans that like to be on camera, right? And so, when we need those situations, we just reach out to our veterans that we're in touch with and say, hey, who wants to be a SWAT guy? Who wants to be a whatever? You know what I mean? And
yeah, that's cool.
And it gets those veterans. So a lot of those veterans are trying to become actors, and maybe they're new, and it gives them experience on set. It gives them experience to be what it's like to be on a major production, and it's good exposure. And some veterans come out here, they just want to be full-time background. They just want to be a full-time stunt player, and that's totally fine, But I try and keep updated with new veterans that come out here. So anytime I get opportunities, I can put them on sets and get them exposure, because I had people do that for me when I was out here, and inexperienced people would give me opportunities so I could start learning what it's like to be on a production. So, yeah.
Is that all unofficial, or is there some kind of local network that you kind of tap into?
Well, there's several networks. So I co-founded a group called Veterans in Film and Television. It's now called Veterans in Media and Entertainment, because when I was out here, I wanted to meet other veterans that worked in the film business, and there was no real, there was cliques of veterans out here, but there was no real kind of unifying, everyone's welcome kind of environment. And we tried to create that. That was back in 2012. But now there's all kinds of groups out. I mean, you have the VME, you have the Hollywood American Legion, you have even the film schools that are out here, USC Film, the New York Film Academy, LA Film, like they all have these big student veteran populations that all keep in touch with. And they're all these groups are kind of intertwined out here in Los Angeles, you know. So it's like if you're part of one, you're probably going to hear about an opportunity over here, because all the information kind of gets cycled through these groups out here, and you know, but not all veterans are the same. Like sometimes veterans aren't professional. Sometimes they aren't of the quality that you want to work with. And
it's just a group of people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so, you know, in my line of work, it's important to have someone either, you know, kind of verify who you are a little bit, or just kind of me having personal experience with you before I invite you out to something, you know?
That's cool. I didn't know you were in as deep with all of this stuff, kind of helping guys out on their way up, Mike. Sarah and I kind of go back and forth on that. And Sarah, I'm going to speak for you here, but this mix of like telling veteran stories of what they did, is that as helpful or as beneficial as talking about what they are doing and can do once they take the uniform off and the value add going forward? Because I feel like when we focus too much back, sometimes it can bring out pity in a sense. And again, speaking for Sarah, I don't think that there's a lot of value in that. So it's cool what you're doing. I really like that.
Yeah, like, you know, I think pity is disgusting. That's what I just got to say that, because it is, and it's living in the past. Whereas like that description of what we're talking about, I'll use that SWAT team as an example. Everybody wins in that scenario in my book. Hollywood, like we as the viewer, the corny ass stuff of the 90s with the military is horrible. Now it's laughable and chintzy, but that's not what people are going for now. I feel like that's fixed. How did we fix it? By actually having the doers in the seat who are literally playing a role that they're good at. And it's not the past. I mean, even playing a SWAT team or just acting like this, maybe for them turns into playing a lumberjack, you know, next week. And that turns into something else, and that turns into something else. But the whole meantime is they want to be doing that thing. And they might have been infantry or field artillery or MP or who knows what, doesn't matter. Could have been a ammo bearer on a freaking ship. But now today, though, what they wanted, they don't want to do that. That's why they got out.
That's exactly
they just
right.
want to fit in.
And that was me. That was me. You know, I was a military police. Well, I trained military dogs. That was my background in the Marines, which I loved. I actually loved doing that, you know. But I just wanted a whole new experience in life, right? And and there's actually a really cool job in entertainment, which is training dogs for film and TV. And animal wrangling, like that's an actual union. Being an animal wrangler is a union job, right? Yeah. Like where all you do full time is train animals to be on camera. It's a good paying union job in entertainment. But I wanted to do something different from the animal stuff. I wanted to I didn't really know what I wanted to do in entertainment. I just knew I wanted to come out here and start to go to school for it and kind of learn how it all works and then find my place in it, you know? And that's just kind of how I got to where I'm at today. And I really enjoy helping produce projects. You know, I've pitched a whole bunch of projects to networks and film, you know, producer, you know, it's a big juggling, it's a grind, you know, and but you got to stay persistent. You know, the key thing is whatever you decide to do, just work hard at it and be a good person, you know, like we helped set up all these training. One of the things we did with the nonprofit when we set it up, well, one, we just started bringing veterans together to meet each other, to be aware of each other, of who's who in the business and in the industry. But then once we established that, we started working with studios and networks and started creating job career opportunities. And, you know, to give you some examples, there's this one Army, a soldier, he got accepted into this writers group, I think at Fox Studios. This was several years ago. Now he's and he did well. He took advantage of that opportunity, performed well in this writers group, and got hired as a staff TV writer. Now he's an executive producer on major TV shows and a writer on several TV shows. A lot of people don't even know who he is. And he's out there just doing it, just busting his ass and just living his dream. We had another Marine veteran. He didn't know what he wanted to do, but he took this, one of the big talent agencies here in Hollywood wanted to hire veterans. And he said, well, I'll go try that. And then he ended up being the assistant of one of the top talent agents in Hollywood. And now he works for major showrunners in TV. You know, it's just like people just kind of have these interesting career paths. We had this single mother from this girl from she's a Navy veteran. She went to film school, but was undecided on what she wanted to do. We created this career program to get veterans introduced to location management, so that whenever movies and TV shows want to scout a location to film at, they send their location crew. She got hired as a location assistant and loves it and got into the union. It's a good paying job. And she works on major TV shows as a location assistant now. And she's a single mom and she needed that job. And now she has benefits for her kid and all that stuff. And it's really cool to see, you know, anybody really just to come in and take advantage of opportunities given to them and bust their ass and work hard, but especially vets, you know?
I didn't know most of these jobs existed. When you say entertainment, I immediately think filmmaking. And
most people do. Yeah.
Holy cow,
you have construction workers on entertainment. You have props. There's a lot of vets that work in props, especially now because of the weapons that are used on set. And, you know, the whole Alec Baldwin situation where, you know, the tragic situation, like there's veterans that are getting involved in being what's called prop masters to mention all that stuff. And you have set dressers, you have makeup, you have special effects, visual effects, you have animators. Like there's just so much. There's lighting, there's electric, there's set medics, there's set photographers. There's this guy, he was a photographer in the Navy, got into the entertainment business. We got him some jobs on some film sets. Every single production hires set photographers, you know, and they use those images for like the movie posters or marketing material. And it's a union job where all you do is you show up to set and take pictures. That's all you do. And this Navy veteran got into the set photographer union. And once you're in the union, you're working all the time. And that's what he works on all these major movies, taking pictures as the still photographer. It's cool. You know, it's really cool once you learn, but the best way to learn the business is to go to film school. They teach you about all these jobs. They teach you about what's out there. So for any veteran that's interested in this kind of career path, go to some type of film school or film or some kind of entertainment certificate program or just some kind of curriculum that exposes you to this business, because it'll open your eyes a lot more wide to what you think you know.
It sounds like there's a lot more, if entry level is the right way to put it, like it feels like there's more opportunities out there than I ever would have thought for somebody to just show up and get their hands dirty doing something. If they want to be an actor, maybe they're not going to do that for a while, but they can move props because you're probably always looking for people to do dirty work of sorts.
100%.
That's cool.
100%. And it's a good business for veterans to transition to, because, you know, when you're on a set, there's a hierarchy, there's a chain of command. And also there's a lot of pressure on set and people need to perform under pressure and take orders, and veterans are used to that environment, are used to doing that type of stuff. Now, if you're a creative role actor, you know, that's an individual skill set that you need to develop. But in terms of just taking orders and doing a good job and go attack that hill or go, you know, get that truck or whatever it is, you know, vets can do that type of stuff on a set. And there's lots of jobs like that.
And it's like, and I think it's not taking orders aspect, in my opinion. It is the ability to process direct language.
There you go.
That's coming right at you, and did not take it personally. And to, you know what, maybe you did screw up, maybe you didn't, but a lot of times maybe you did. Whoops, you were nervous, you did screw up, crap, you dropped that wrench and made a very loud noise, you know. And it's just like, but you've probably already done that before though, and been laughed at and made a fool of because you've already been through the military.
Exactly.
And
right.
so when you're in that scenario now as a grown-ass adult, let's say at 22 years old, it's not so bad. And applying that sort of mentality into anything is, in my opinion, sort of the way forward with all of this.
That's exactly right. And entertainment is a really interesting career. It's also, you know, it can be brutal sometimes. You know, sometimes you're out of work if you're not in the unions. It's a real hustle to find work. And that's a skill set that veterans need to learn: how to hustle, how to get on the grind. How, you know, you can't just sit back, I'm a veteran, offer me work. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you have to, when you first get here, it is hard work. I'm not gonna It is really hard work. A lot of people don't last, and you have to really want it. But that being said, it's also worth it. Like once you finally start making those relationships, start getting consistent work, then it becomes fun, you know, and it makes you realize, and it makes you appreciate that grind even more, you know.
It's patience. I think that's what I've learned. I was definitely impatient, and it takes time for these sort of things. But like I think you brought up a good point, because the ability, again, I don't want to say take orders, but to communicate with direct language on a one-on-one basis, no matter who they are, whether it's a boss, whether it's a peer, whether it's a associate or subordinate person. Direct language is permissible for any of these things, right? Any direction. That does not exist really in society, I don't think. It's really weird and more passive aggressive. So, but let's say that is our strength, but you just described. So that's great, good. But that only gets you so far. The creative endeavor of how to put your foot down and take a path now and make a decision on what career to do, what you're saying, how to find gigs, all of that sort of initiative. When we don't have that sort of the mentor that come hell or high water is trying to push us along or drag us along, that's the military. That does not exist at all in the civilian world, unless you're lucky and happen to fall into it. But it's not natural. There's like a power vacuum where we have this direct organizational structure, and then it just doesn't exist anymore. And you have certain skill sets that were successful in that prior existence, but like the current thing is a power vacuum.
That's right.
That's not a good situation either. We know what happens. Like bad crap happens. It's not a lot of good that fills a power vacuum for some reason. That's actually when all the toxins start to come in.
Yeah, you have to find a balance, and you have to have a lot of self-reflection and personal growth in dealing with the types of personalities out here, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's why these veterans groups are so important, because if nothing else, if you are struggling or having challenges, you at least have a community that you can engage with, that hopefully you feel comfortable with, you know? And but it's cool, you know. I served in Iraq way back in 2004, right? And I've met some vets out here who served in the same area as I did in 2004, just coincidentally, just like in the next AO over, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And and somehow the universe brought us both into this path, and I've been able to work with some super talented vets. You know, after the Medal of Honor series on Netflix, I teamed up with a great filmmaker. His name is Robert Ham. He was an Army combat videographer, and he went to USC Film School, got his MFA there, and super talented guy. And we just kind of clicked, and we went out and shot a handful of short documentaries about different veteran issues out there related to the VA, or featured some. We had an amazing Vietnam veteran Marine story that we wanted to share, and we did a little story about him, and just to be able to use our skill sets and networks and tell stories that we feel are important, that maybe, you know, civilians might not know, but as a veteran community, we want to get out there. And we got nominated for an Emmy for one of them, which was great, you know? So
that's awesome.
It's just like, once you kind of like follow your path or feel good about what you're doing, it's like just people and opportunities just start presenting themselves, you know? And, or at least that's what happened for me. I felt like I was following a career path that I was really interested in. I felt good about it. And I started meeting people and getting opportunities along the way, and try to create opportunities for other people. Everything, you know, I always try to pay it forward. I wasn't just like, hey, give me. I was always trying to share the love as much as there's vets out here that'll cutthroat. They don't care about sharing the love. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know, but that's with any business, I guess. And I just control what I can control and do what I can do, and try not to worry about anybody else and what they're doing.
So on that note, controlling what you can control, we've talked a lot about kind of the community and the networking piece when it comes to veterans and military, but another side of that is the subject matter that you're focused on. It seems like a lot of it has been military, but is that something you're focused on, staying within kind of the military niche, or is Is it easy to move out of that? What does that look like?
Well, once you start doing military projects, people just kind of put you in that box as being affiliated out here in Hollywood, right? It would be nice to branch out and do other creative endeavors that have nothing to do with a veteran storyline, right? But that being said, I love the veteran community, and if I can spotlight stories I think could benefit the community, then I'm all about that, and I'll always pursue that.
Awesome.
But there are projects right now I'm teaming up with some other veterans on who are filmmakers, and it has nothing to do with veteran stories. You know what I mean? So we're going to try and branch out and see if we could do something and just be creatives, because that's what we want to be. So yes, it would be nice to diversify the range of productions I'm working on, but work is work. If I can just keep doing what I like, which is being a part of the business and working in it, and if that is only military stuff, then so be it. I'm not like, that's not a bad thing.
That's hard to beat.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
there's an appetite for it, and it is also kind of what you're mentioning. I mean, you are sort of a gatekeeper too, and if you don't do it, who will, for one thing? And it's almost like being on the vanguard so that these stories are told and maybe not handed off to people that sort of will screw them up. And so I'm sure that is a motivating factor as well. It's not just, and then bringing in other people, like you were mentioning, like you're giving in opportunities to people that you probably feel like, I would guess you felt like them at one point, and that's probably going to be quite rewarding to then sort of what you were describing, just pay it forward and continue to like mentor people where, again, power vacuum, right? So we can be successful in these power vacuums, but it's really by creating a foundation first,
and Hollywood wants veterans out here. They understand much more what value vets bring to productions. Hard work, usually hardworking, show up on time, kind of go above and beyond and have life experience that's just valuable. So with that being said, there's a lot of programs out there that's writers programs, filmmaker programs, and filmmaking schools. There's like a lot of opportunity for veterans to get introduced to the entertainment business if you just start looking, and it doesn't have to be here in Los Angeles. Like, you could go wherever you're at. There's probably some kind of school or some kind of opportunity for you to get involved. And that's just it. We're just one industry. It's kind of an industry people kind of fantasize about. And
yeah.
I'm one of those types where if I get an idea in my head that I really want to do, I got to go do it. I can't I can't be really think about something so much and I don't want to look back on my life and regret not doing some things. And there was a part of me that just was always interested in working in entertainment, because I grew up watching Terminator, Commando, and Predator, and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And that's like the 80s movies, the 80s action movies. That had a huge influence on me, and I for whatever reason, I thought it'd be super cool to be part of that process, and so I just kind of had this desire that I couldn't get rid of, and I said, I got to go do this. I got to go learn. I got to go see if I want to go work in this business or not, and that's how I ended up out here. Yeah,
I like it.
I would imagine you say the same thing about joining the Marines too.
That's exactly. That's exactly. I joined pre 9/11. I had a good friend that was in the Marines, and I didn't have any military connection at that time that I was aware of. And I was looking to get out of my hometown, I wanted to have personal growth, have a sense of adventure. And my friend was trying to tell me, you should come into the Marines. And it just kind of, I just realized and I used to be an athlete growing up, and I wanted to be in an environment where I felt I could use athleticism and camaraderie and teamwork. And that just kind of drew me to the Marine Corps. And I signed up and I went to boot camp in August 2001. And then 1 month while I was in boot camp, 9/11 happened while I was in boot camp.
Wow.
It was wild. Yeah. But, I was actually, in my mindset, I was like, well, I'm right where I want to be. If we're going to be attacked,
sure,
I want to be here training to be a Marine, and but it was kind of wild to be in boot camp when 9/11 happened. You know, the whole, you know, that set a whole trajectory in my future that I didn't know was going to happen, you know?
We had a buddy of ours on, Mike, who was in the Army, but in boot camp with 9/11. And he said they all thought the drill sergeants were screwing with him. They wouldn't believe the drill sergeants.
Yeah, that was us. Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, so I went to Marine Corps boot camp in there's San Diego and Parris Island for Marine boot camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went to San Diego, and the San Diego Marine boot camp, MCRD, is right next to the San Diego airport. And so airplanes are flying over our heads like every 2 minutes all the time. But on 9/11, it was like, we thought the drill instructors were lying to us because we were, remember, we're 3 hours behind New York. So it was like, what, 8:30, 9 o'clock in New York. So it's like barely reveille for us, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever. We're like half asleep, getting into formation. And they're trying to tell us, hey, we're under attack. And we're like, what the hell are you guys talking about? You know what I mean? But then they said, if you notice, no planes have been flying over our heads. Watch, pay attention, see if you hear a plane. And sure enough, it was like an eerie silence over the MCRD. And we realized, oh man, because they didn't show us TV, they didn't show us footage, they didn't show us anything. They just told us what was happening. And it was wild. Yeah, it was crazy. And then at that point, because I went in on an open contract, so I let that, which is the dumbest thing you can do, right? I signed.
That's where they pick.
Up, yeah, I didn't choose a job. I allowed. I mean, I got screwed. The recruiter screwed me over. It's a long story, but basically, I ended up open contract. So when 9/11 happened, I thought for sure I was going to go infantry, which I was fine with. I was okay with whatever the Marines threw at me.
Sure.
But they gave me military police, and then I got dog handler, and I got to train.
There we go.
My dog Rex right here.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that was my future. So I was really lucky. I ended up in the worst position on open contract, but fell into the best position because I worked my ass off. Once I didn't even know the military had dogs, and once I went, because this is back when it wasn't as known back then, and
right
when I went to military police school, and you can go SWAT team, you can go investigations, and you can be canine, and I'm like, what? I didn't know you guys had dogs, and it's hard to get canine, but I busted my ass and got honor grad of the class, and that so that there would be no mistake that I earned it. You know what I mean? And, and that's how I got canine. Yeah.
So open contract, 9/11, working dog, Rex led to the book Sgt Rex, which I imagine got you at least some recognition in the next step of your career. So that's cool, man. I like that.
I was just really lucky to be able to tell them I wasn't looking to write a book. I had an author reach out to me, who was interested in my story with my dog, because Rex and I, when we went in 2004, it was the first time Marine Corps dog teams had been serving in combat since the Vietnam War. That's a 30-year time gap, and our group of dog teams that I was with, we were like the guinea pigs. We were like, hey, let's, like General Mattis and General Conway and those that were in Iraq at the time leading the Marines, they were like, IEDs became such a threat. They were like, let's see if bomb sniffing dogs can come out here and help with that. And the argument was, well, dogs might overheat and they're not trained for this environment, which we weren't. We weren't trained for that. We were military police dog handlers. We weren't training to be in combat,
Mm-hmm.
And but they were like, we don't care. Let's get them out here and see how they do. So they embedded. There was about 12 of us at that time, and they took one dog team and put one over here, and I got attached to 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines, and we were part of the First Battle of Fallujah, and got to work in Mahmadiyah, and it was a rough time. It was, but all the dogs, Rex, as well as all the dogs I was with, everyone did great. Everyone found explosives. Everyone did their job well, and kind of like helped rewrite the whole SOPs, help the canine leadership to rewrite the whole SOPs for dogs in today's warfare. And so this author found out that I was part of that experience, and thought it'd be cool to write a story about it. And I'm really thankful. I thought it was going to be like a self-publishing type deal. I didn't know anything about publishing or book deals or anything like that. And I just kind of went with the flow and the process. And thankfully, we had a publisher and I was able to share my story. And I've tried to get other dog handlers book deals and help them tell their stories. And, because there's so many great ones out there. But Rex deserved to have his story told. Rex, he's, I owe my life to him, and so do a lot of other people, because he's found a bunch of explosives and IEDs, and he's a hard working dog. Like he had snipers shoot at him. He's been blown up. He's done 3 hard deployments. He's done tons and tons of patrols. He's a great dog, great dog. And so he deserved to have a story told.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark. Any chance you're familiar with Maria Gadovic, Luca, Chris Willingham?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Really? Awesome. Yeah. We had Maria on a few months ago.
Yeah.
To tell the story
awesome.
of Luca. Yeah.
Yeah. Maria's done a great job in giving the military dog community some great books. She's done great work in educating people about, you don't have to be a military person to educate people about military stories, right? If it's something you're passionate about and supportive of, Maria's been a great ambassador as a civilian for the MWD community. She's put in real work and going down to Lackland, doing her research, and she's done a good job. And Chris and Luca have a great story. And again, there's lots of great stories out there, so I'm glad you guys had her on.
Awesome. Yeah.
We used one of those. We had one of those. I mean, we worked with Marine dog handlers that had those Israeli dogs in 2010, which was kind of cool. Like, because when we showed up, because it is interesting to think about, because with you in 03, 04 time frame, not really using them to where, like, when we were there in Afghanistan in 2010, special like 75th and those guys were using dogs, but we really weren't. But probably about halfway into it, that became like you couldn't leave a patrol without a working dog.
Everyone wanted the dogs. Every
single platoon. I mean, it was like first you'd get one for the company. And so like I got the dog for we had a big mission, and it was like that really badass dog. It was a Marine dog trained in Israel, and it goes like 400 meters off leash. It was just the most incredible thing ever. And then it progressed to where we were getting one per platoon, like I said, like halfway into it, and we were using ground penetrating radar. We were using metal detectors and a lot of map reconnaissance that can find things prior to all this stuff. And besides sort of like route planning, like common sense with your head and like where you're stepping, the actual asset, the best asset was the dog. They really are incredible.
They spent over like $1 billion on the Army set up this IED, counter IED unit to research all these different ways we can counter the IED threat. And they spent over $1 billion on this research. And at the end of it, they still concluded that the dogs were the best asset to counter them. But, you mentioned those Israeli dogs. Those are what's called SSD. So you have what's a standard military working dog team, MWD team, right? Mm-hmm. But in the beginning of Iraq and Afghanistan, once dog teams were going down range and getting this experience and coming back with all this feedback and after action reports, so like SSDs it's called specialized search dogs, and they specialize in being trained off leash, working away from the handler, because as an MWD team, we weren't trained to do that. Our dog was on a 6 foot, usually a 6 foot lead. And if we walk up on an IED, we're both done for potentially, Yeah. So, part of our after action reports included, hey, maybe we should think about training dogs off leash away from the handler so that the whole dog team isn't compromised. And that's how the SSD started. And it turns out that Israel had already mastered this technique. And so we started sending handlers to go to Israel to learn how to do that. And actually they sent I remember we had Israeli trainers come to us when I got back to start teaching that method. And it turned out to be a great success. SSD teams. So you have MWD teams, SSD teams, you have CTT, combat tracker teams, you have MPCs, multi-purpose canines. There's a whole, ever since early Iraq and Afghanistan, it went from MWDs to all these specialty dog teams that do different tasks, which is a good thing, because dogs they have such a wide range of skill sets and can be used for so many different purposes. But your basic standard a team is an MWD, military working dog team, that's out there. But yeah, SSDs were great as well. Yeah.
Which the MWD is what we pretty much had afterwards. That was a very specialized mission where we had that SSD dog. It was just a or just a few day period. And then once we finally got more people, it was the MWD sort of style.
Yeah.
From
the
all
SSDs,
different units, Army, Navy, Marine, no more Marines after that. But even we trained, by the end of it, we trained our own 101st guys, and that was good or bad, right or indifferent. But they were infantrymen that went on this, I don't know, 6-10 week training thing. They're supposed to be just a replacement PFC rifleman, but they trained them on the dogs. And so we, just to get as many as we could on the line, essentially.
not all the dogs were successful. They tried to create, I think it was called IDD, infantry detector dogs. Some of them weren't that great. At least that's what I hear. I try to pay attention to the feedback and whatnot. But overall, the dogs did and still do great work. But they've dramatically scaled the canine program down in the entire military over the last couple of years. Like a lot of those specialty skill sets have gone away. But one of the biggest changes they made early on was they created a pre-deployment training course just for dog teams to go through this pre-deployment experience of what it's going to be like when you're deployed. And that was at Marine Corps Base Yuma, Arizona, which is out in the desert. They created these mock villages and whatnot so that, because when we went, we didn't have any of that stuff. We went to a rifle range to get dogs exposure to some rifle gunfire, but that was about it. There was no kicking in doors, moving tactically and, stuff like that. We didn't really have that much training. So this whole pre-deployment training course was set up once they realized we need to get dog teams acclimated to combat environments and distractions, dead animals, and what IEDs might be looking like, and things to look for, and so that was a big added bonus but they closed that down. Once Iraq and Afghanistan came to a close, a lot of these skill sets are no longer being taught, and they might get lost, in the history of the military. We'll see, but yeah, over the last 20 years, the canine program just exploded in different skill sets and training, and lots of amazing stories, lots of heroic stories, dogs that have died, dogs that have got wounded, handlers that, one of my best friends is Sergeant Adam Can. He's a legend in the canine world. There's been about, I don't know the exact number. It's like 24 dog handlers that have been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. Adam was the first dog handler killed in combat since Vietnam. And he and I trained and served together at Camp Pendleton. And he was a great Marine. And, he goes to show how dangerous it is being a dog handler. Like he and his dog identified a suicide bomber that had a bomb underneath his clothes. And he looked at the guy, they made eye contact, and the guy detonated right in front of him. This was in Ramadi, Iraq in January 2006. And but his dog saved his dogs miraculously survived the blast.
Wow.
But they people died for sure, but they ended up saving a lot more lives, because if he would have gotten into a certain area, he would have done 10 times more damage. And my friends, Jesse Maldonado, Brendan Pollard, there was 3 dog teams there that day. They all got wounded, but they survived, thankfully. Adam was killed. It's a dangerous job, and it's a very, very dangerous job. And I love being a part of the community. I love, working with the dogs, being a part of having that experience, and working with an amazing dog in Rex. And I'm just really grateful, man. I get put in these situations, I work hard, and somehow manage to survive. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm just a survivor at this point.
Yeah.
And then you get out and, you become friends with, you see some friends struggle and lose their battles. And then you start to wonder, man, can that happen to me? You know what I mean? And then you just and then you realize you owe it to those that didn't come home to live your life. Like they would want you to live your life, you know, and be happy and be successful and all that. And you just remind yourself, like, whenever you start getting some kind of depression or some kind of isolation or some kind of withdrawal, you know, like I'm a different person than what I was before the Marine Corps, you know, like, and I think for the better, of course, like, you know, but I find you know, I actively find ways to find therapy in terms of just being to stay happy and because even though I'm in Los Angeles and I'm in this business, it feels like I'm in like such a busy area and I'm constantly around people. I'm actually not. Like I'm kind of I'm very good at creating this bubble and just being in my own bubble. You know what I mean? And engaging only when I need to. And then when I realize when I feel like I need a break, I like to go to like national parks. So I have my dog with me and we go to parks or go on road trips, and I do a lot of nature therapy type adventures and stuff. And that's just kind of like how I manage, you know?
I relate to all of that. Yeah. And I mean, working dog, I mean, very personally related and that experience. Cause I mean, I was just being the platoon leader, always having one, but I mean, we were Delta, Press and I were both deployed together, and we were Delta Company, which is dog company, using dogs all the freaking time. And our casualty, our KIA in the company was Zana Creamer. I don't know if you know. I'm not going to put you on a spot with that name.
No, I know who she is. I think she was the first female dog handler killed, right?
3rd Platoon Delta. I mean, she was attached.
So you knew her?
We were in the company. Like she would have walked a mission. I mean, they came to us for 2 weeks at a stint. We would have been living in the outpost in the Wild West, in a platoon or company sized cop, and then we would get rotated in for a week or two, the dog handlers. And so they could, like I said, Air Force, Navy, or not Marines at this point, but all the other ones coming over. I think there might have even been civilian contractor ones. I think there were. And so it doesn't matter. They get attached and they're just going on patrols, because that's what we're doing, constantly sort of patrolling. And then they cycle in and out. They sort of had their own squad leader at the main fob that was sort of managing all of the individual teams. And she was with I was 2nd platoon and she was 3rd platoon when they were on like a 2-day air assault mission. I wasn't there for it. I was separate myself. I don't know if Preston, I think he was on leave.
I was on leave, yeah. But they were down in Nagam,
but it was
part of Kandahar, Afghanistan.
Yeah, it was a bad mission, bad place. And she was right there at the front, man. I mean, she was at the front with 101st Airborne Division on the line at the freaking surge at the tip of the spears where she was.
You know, when they started doing this whole movement of incorporating women into combat roles, which is good, that's great, you know, but before, like, there was a real momentum, like, over the last several years where that happened. But I knew before all that was out there, in my mind, I was like, shit, I know, you know, 20 female dog handlers that have already been in the shit way more, you know, as much as anybody, you know what I mean? Like, female dog handlers put in real work downrange. And I mean, early on, even back as early as end of 2004, we had female Marine dog handlers out there and in Fallujah, you know, and putting in real work. And, you know, mad respect to all of them. And Zana, she's indigenous, I believe. I think she's Native American, if I remember, which is even more, you know, it's just like, she has a really unique background. I remember reading up on her and just remember thinking, like, you know, wow, you know, it's such a dangerous job working with the dogs, because your whole mission is to find explosives, right? And so you're intentionally trying to come across explosives. And it almost feels like it was just a matter of time until something traumatic happened, you know, but it still is terrible nonetheless when it does happen, especially when, you know, it happens to a female handler, you know. So
it affects everybody,
and
you know.
And she is known, like she Kennels was named after her, I believe, in the Army, in her honor, which is a good thing. So
I mean, you're talking about hardcore. Yeah. I mean, we lived on the Wild West where there's no water, there's no electricity. there were no porta potties for a long period of time. And in this time there were no porta potties still. And you were working with Afghan National Army guys, and they're living inside this little fort that we made. That's just a conquered house, and we're peeing and pooping in the holes and we're burning it. I mean, that is the existence. There's no laundry.
That's what she did with all of the guys there. Yeah.
There was a story of hers where she was
a whole unit of guys that you're around, and
didn't matter.
Yep.
And there's a story where, we had a poop hole and a pee hole. Pee hole pretty much evaporates. And it's just kind of in the corner, like you would have to go pee in the corner, of course. And so, but she goes to go pee, and she has a I guess they're normal now, like a camping trough, like a funnel hose situation, where the ANA are like really confused by this and like wanting to watch almost because it's a woman, and there's a weird male female that we may be more accustomed to it as Americans, okay with it, even if it's still not okay in some sort, different circles, but as an American culture, a lot different than Afghan culture, And anyway, she like flipped him off, go pound sand. She's very confident, and she belonged.
Like a true soldier. Good
she
soldier.
Belonged.
Yeah.
Yep.
And being a dog handler is a very independently driven role. Like, which is why it's hard to get. It's a huge responsibility because you're responsible for that dog's life 24/7, making sure that they're surviving and living, and you're in charge of another living being. Like if it's just you having to worry about yourself, that's easier, right? But constantly having to put another living being on your mind and prioritizing that, it just gives you a sense of individualism a little bit more than everybody else, I think, and so that makes sense, and that's awesome that she was that way, and I love that you guys got to serve with her. It's an honor to serve with anybody, well, everyone, but the ones that don't come home and you realize you were part of their experience, because they died doing what they wanted to do, which is serving in the U.S. military. I mean, nobody wants to go over there and die, but like if you do it, like I would feel like that they feel that that's an honorable way to go, and you're part of that life experience before that happened to them, and so Zaina, yeah, she's known in the canine world for sure. Absolutely.
Makes me happy to hear that.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
She's definitely known. And now that I think about it, I'm not sure how many female handlers have been killed. I'm like maybe one or two, or I'm not sure. But I do know her for sure. Yeah. So yeah, if the canine world is small and a very tight-knit world, well, somewhat tight-knit, and I love being a dog handler. I'm glad when I was a dog team with the 2-2 Marine unit that I was with, at first I was the only dog team with them. So here I am, one dog team for an entire infantry battalion, right? And working with guys like you, yes, we're there to do a job, but people are just happy to have the dog around,
Yeah.
And and just happy to have, because the dogs bring good energy. But what's funny is everybody wants to play with the dog, but most of the dogs are also trained to attack, so you can't mess with them. You know what I mean? And so it was kind of funny in that sense, like to see if Rex might accidentally bite somebody. I
got a scar on my arm for being a dumbass.
That's funny.
Around one of the dogs that you knew not to do. It was one of the newer dogs that was an infantryman training it on the expedited course just to get the hell over into Kandahar and get outside the wire and patrol. And we knew to stay away. And I didn't. I was walking by, come back from the DFAC, and he was kind of tied up outside the tent. No one was there. No one could see it because but I was just trying to reach out, and no, he definitely bit my arm. But I just tried to no sell it and walk away, like nobody saw it, and but he got me pretty good.
I've been bit many times by. If you become a handler, you're told if you're afraid to get bit, then this isn't your job. Because you're going to get bit. It's not if, but when, and because that's just part of training. Mistakes happen all the time, and I've definitely been bit. It's kind of like a badge of honor for most handlers. You know what I mean? hopefully you don't get a bit too serious, but
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
but you know, I survived that experience. I was fortunate to have someone take an interest in my story, write a book about it, and being able to educate people about what dog handlers might go through and the value of dog teams and dogs. You know, I'm just grateful to be able to share what information I can and reach and do what I can to kind of just bring good attention into this community. And I'll always be grateful for it. I'll always be super, super grateful for my experience and working with Rex and yeah, I don't know if you can see this tag.
That's awesome.
I just got that recently, actually.
Looks really good.
That is
If you
nice.
notice, if you notice in his ear, you can see the number, the letter E168, which is every military dog has their own unique identification number tattooed in their ear. So there's 1 million Rexes in the military, but only one with that ID number. It's kind of like their social security number.
Sure.
And that's how they track their health and records and stuff like that, you know? So,
That's awesome.
but
It's like
yeah.
his dog tag on his ear. The
Yeah.
dog's dog tag on his ear, the dog's ear.
Yeah. What's funny is I never got tattoos when I was in the military. I waited till afterward. But and now it's all military war dog tattoos.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Well,
Memory alive.
we'll
Yeah.
put a link to Sgt Rex, the book, in the show notes here, as well as a link to your website, officialmikedowling.com. What's a good
Cool.
way for people to get in touch with you? Is the website the place to go?
Website, yeah. I deactivated a lot of my social media because social media is so negative, I feel a lot of times. And
Mhm.
I'm mainly active on Instagram, just Mike Dowling or Sgt Rex, and my website, Official Mike Dowling. That's about it. Yeah.
Like it. We'll make sure all those are added there. But Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to chat, for everything you've done and what you continue to do. Really, really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
too. Thank you. Thanks for all what you guys are doing. Appreciate what you guys bring to the community, and appreciate you having me on. It's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.